Dark Java, no sweetener. Let's see how many of these I can get through. I'm going to start with a nice one. It seems that way. MKUltra, I really don't know. I don't know anything about computers. I do believe something gross is going on involving Podesta and Comet owner, their inner circle, and children. I'll get to that in a minute if I can. I think this is the first video of yours I've ever watched. Instantly subscribe. Well, thank you. I hope I don't disappoint you. I've disappointed a couple of people this week because they thought I was saying one thing when I was saying another, apparently. Do you really know what MK means? And were you just being sarcastic? I said MKUltra because it seems like it fits with all the other shady stuff they're involved in. I've also caught Podesta and James Lee WTF. I love that. Not James Lowe, whatever. It's James Lowe WTF. And a few lies during interviews. I subscribe to you because it's not fair to form an opinion when you only know the story from one viewpoint. Okay, I'll STF you now. Really? Okay. First of all, MKUltra, if anybody's curious, was a group of projects and an attempt to see if on a military level, along with a bunch of other weird experiments, yes, the movie Many Start Goats, MKUltra was about whether or not you could modify people's behavior in a predictable and useful way. This is not what you people will be told normally. And the answer to that is no. Humans react so differently from each other. Even if you put them in groups and put them in a situation that worked last week, it isn't reliable trying to manipulate people except in mass, and only you can get you can fool all the people some of the time and some of the people all of the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time, and you can't fool none of them ever. You will accidentally fool them. Mass media, mainstream media, propaganda, editing books with the wrong information, ad nauseum, catchatorium. I can go on forever about this. Don't let me. This is my fourth take because I started to. So, yeah, that was an example of a set of experiments, and if anybody's really curious about this, if you really want to know about MKUltra, and I mean really learn about it, not just use it as a meme or just MK, you can learn about how unsuccessful it was and how screwed up it was and how wrong it was. This was a period of time also when people just look up all the other things that were done as experiments, Operation MKUltra, blah, blah, blah. Also included in this, I should add in, I'm just going to throw this in the bucket of all the crazy stuff. Experimenting with remote viewing, attempting to manipulate groups of people who were considered dangerous to the U.S. government and to the natural order of society by screwing with people and trying to do things like get them sick or kill them. Yeah, just standard dirty tricks, evil stuff that you would assume only would happen in foreign countries. No, it happened here. Mostly it happened from here to other countries, but it did happen here. And here is the scuttlebutt about it. Just like waterboarding people, mind control doesn't work very well. Just like doing a lie detector test. It doesn't work very well. And I mean by very well as in you have anything from, depending on what day of the week it is and what person you get, you can have a 100% success rate, it seems, and then wait 2 years and something terrible happens. Or you can have them do something that is horrifyingly dangerous to you. Trying to control people by any of the methods listed really failed. The reason that they were tried as part of that project and many other projects with different names was they wanted to see, no, really, our assumption is this won't work, let's try it anyway. I'm sorry, but that's my synopsis of it. Now, that's a very big generalization. I don't have the files in front of me. I do a lot of these bad job with WAPTEK vids without having anything in front of me. The idea is it's off the cuff. Now, the next thing is, was I being sarcastic about MKUltra? Probably. Half the time when I bring it up, it's just kind of a shorthand word for government attempts to mess with people's heads, ends up staring at goats. The next thing is, I'm going to cover this real quick. Podesta, the Comet Pizza Place owner, an inner circle, and children. The last part, just remove it. This is Washington, D.C. we're talking about, but even small-town politics involves whoever is in power financially or has influence socially. Very important thing. That social cred, political power, These are the things that people want, because money, you can't eat $1 billion worth of burgers, you will explode. You can't wear $1 billion worth of clothes, it would just be a room filled with cloth. A true rich person finds that comfortable zone. And if a person's like a restaurateur, they want to find that subtly perfect point where they're just connected enough to take advantage of it and have it promote what they want in life, but they're not so connected they get torn down when the inevitable happens to every politician in Washington, D.C., where something happens where they get caught with cigars. So anyway, dang interns. So anyway, where was I? Oh yes. Bringing in, I'm sorry, but this is something I have to say about Pizzagate and the whole thing. Stop bringing children into it. I talk about this, but what's the main driver for doing this? The main driver for bringing up the children, is because it's a way to elicit extreme responses from people, and it's a very predictable way to manipulate them, because they will react, they won't think. And they don't have to be parents. They will do whatever they do. And you can get people manipulating into doing anything. I did a little experiment today, which was now yesterday, X number of hours ago. It's almost 3 a.m. now, where I planted some information on some channels that have never seen me before, for them to go, give them a puzzle to solve, so they'll look it up and actually read it, and see if they run with it, and see if they do something that probably gets their channel shut down. Yeah, I'm doing it to people who are jerks, and also people who have been particularly obnoxious about some of this stuff, and I'm seeing how clever they think they are. Yes, it was mean. I'll see what happens. I'll check back in 2 days and I'll tell everybody about my little experiment. Remind me in 2 days about it. But the point is, I left something there that would absolutely, if they run with it, make them very visible on that list I tell people about. And the next thing I'm going to bring up again is, if you wanted to find everybody in the United States who was easily manipulated, to make them mobilized and in mass, like an army, like a bunch of, sleeper cells, ready-made jihadists. Look for people who are impervious to facts and information, and in the process get them to hashtag the hell out of themselves to where you know who they are, so you know who to worry about. I've made this very clear before, but the people who are doing this particular meme are manipulating everybody. It's not an opinion. It's very obvious that's happening. It has every single earmark the last 2 or 3 times I've seen it happen. It's only happened a couple of times that I've seen in the modern internet era. This is dangerous. Don't do it. Next, to be blunt, I don't want to save anybody anymore. I'm not going to warn anybody anymore after today, probably, and I'm just going to sit back and get out the popcorn and watch. Because you're going to see channels disappear. And they're not going to be disappearing because they're being silenced. It's because they're being hauled into a room and every single thing they have is being decoded, and they will give passwords. Even though waterboarding, torture, and stuff like that don't really work, there are people who are able to kind of use it to get passwords. That's the kind of thing that happens in this real world we live in. And just like the MKUltra thing, some things are more effective than others. So if someone's desperate, they'll try it. But unless you're really desperate, you don't do them. Unless you're an advertiser and you're going to play back an annoying humming noise during a video broadcast to get people to not ignore the screen when they're trying to, when you put up your advertisement for, Flexinator for their legs or whatever. Yes, I'm going to do a video on advertisement manipulation later that everybody will ignore. Okay, next I'm going to go on to the next one. You suck. Get off YouTube and delete your account. Go back to watching cat vids. Excuse me, I don't watch cat vids. I debunk cat vids. Next. If you're going to broadcast yourself, you could at least use a good camera rather than your cheap phone. This isn't a phone because my hands are here and you can see it wiggling in a very characteristic way of a laptop. You insulted me. Actually, I've held the thing like a gigantic cell phone for fun. And I acted like, hello, can you hear me? The whole freaking computer. It's not a cell phone. Sorry, but that is really, really funny. Next. You knew it was going to happen. Someone had to do the false flag and crisis actor bit about some shooting. Apparently, one of the 3 alleged shooting victims was found outside of the bar and grill by police. He was shot through the arm and it didn't kill him. Or was it the other one who was shot and didn't kill him? 2 of them didn't die, yes. And 1 of them physically got out of the building before the police showed up. But of course, they're crisis actors. I've heard people say that crisis actors actually get shot because they're willing to do it. I've also heard people say that on stage, people will let themselves get stabbed when I was a kid. I'll go to that in a minute. Not really. Would that by chance have been Ian? I don't know. You're the one making these statements. The last person that made a bunch of statements and wouldn't back them up, I just said, yeah, this is a tactic called, I call them truther tactics. They're manipulative techniques. While we're on the subject. Strange. Did the police know immediately where the alleged shooter lived? Well, if he was identified because he'd gone there repeatedly, and he's got a very unusual freaking name even for that area, yeah, they could find out where he lived because he hadn't moved recently. You can look up and find his address now. It was available, and they might have just Googled it. You're not smart, are you? Next. Because they set up their command post directly across the street from his location on such and such, instead of the typical place in the parking lot where the shooting allegedly occurred. Okay, so I'm gonna cover this really quickly. You can be an alleged shooter, and in the mind of people who don't deal with reality very well, you can also be an alleged victim. I'm going to explain this to you. There is no such thing as an alleged victim if they're in a hospital bed getting a bullet removed from their body. In a fantasy universe where you don't want to believe anything's real so that it's fluid, so that you can make these sorts of statements on a channel that'll never let them post, you want everything to be on an Etch-a-Sketch. That's very two-dimensional of you. Shake it, shake it. Next. And the typical place of a parking lot where the shooting allegedly occurred isn't a typical place for a staging area. It's called a staging area if you're not aware of it. If you're going to say that this is a shooting that was faked, call it a staging area, right? That's also what it's called if it's not faked. But you can do that. Run with that word. Go look it up. Go on. Chop chop. Next. At the bar and grill. Interesting. Interesting. You're one of those people who comments to himself a lot. Gee, I'm awesome. Look at my pecs. Next. We can't see your pecs. No one can see your pecs on the internet. Or hear you scream in space. Please go prove that. Go find a vacuum cleaner. Because you suck. Anyway. I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway. Would the police ever have located the shooter if he didn't check into a hotel at such and such and then turn himself in 3 hours later? They would have found him because they had a description of him, and he was known in the area, and you didn't look up any of this, did you? You're just doing the this is a formula where someone says, the alleged occurrence of a badger eating a kitten. And, I mean, it's really just a formula that you guys follow, isn't it? Because, well, we'll just create fear, uncertainty, and doubt, no matter how factual it is. Well, is this really a stone in front of me? I don't know. It looks like it could be a fake. It might be bolted to the ground. That's why it seems heavy. Everything to you people is stage magic, isn't it? And on that note, there was a rumor at one time that a stage magic thing that you could do with a real knife with a couple of people on stage is that you could literally stab someone and actually really stab them and make them bleed, but it wouldn't kill them. And they wouldn't bleed out or anything. It was a minor wound, and you could just clean out the wound, and you could do that every few weeks. Now, this has actually got some basis in reality. Pro wrestling. Pro wrestlers sometimes cut their own scalps, so they get blood everywhere. So it's real blood, because stage blood doesn't work very well. And they end up with scars all over their forehead from it. But as for the whole stabbing on stage thing, that's more of a myth than anybody realizes. There is some incidents of people doing that. That's pretty hardcore, but that's not how the real world works. And yeah, saying, well, it was an alleged shooting, but he volunteered to get shot, or it went live. These are all excuses for something real happened and you're refusing to acknowledge it. Yes, someone is out there being a truther about a shooting that, I mean, I'm sorry, but do we even need to repeat this? Anyway, that's it for that part of it for today. Thanks for watching. Have a good day. Good luck with all that. And please look up MKUltra and try not to reproduce it in your own mind.